Hi everyone! Today we're going to be drawing some flowers, and I'm actually going to do several videos on different types of flowers, and I'm going to gear them towards different skill levels and age groups. That being said, of course, anyone of any age is welcome to join along with us and draw. I know some of you moms and dads are very talented artists yourself, and even if you're not, if you've never drawn before, I welcome you to join us and try drawing some flowers with us. But this first video, I'm going to be gearing towards like middle to upper grade school level. So this is going to be for kids in intermediate art at Gift and Art 2 at Heritage. And I'm going to include advanced art in this as well. But again, if you're in high school and you want to try some of these flowers, I welcome you to join us. So I'm going to be going over two flowers in this video, coneflowers and some Easter lilies. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm also going to include some pictures in this video of real coneflowers and real Easter lilies, just to help you get a real feel for how these flowers look in real life. It is spring now, and March 19th was the first official day of spring. One of the things I love about spring and summer is flowers, and I just love drawing flowers. I love looking at flowers. So I hope you'll have fun with me as we draw some flowers today. Before we actually draw our flowers, I thought it would be fun to include in my videos a little bit of information about some famous artists that you might already be familiar with, or you might not. And so the artist I want to talk about just for a minute today is Georgia O'Keeffe. And if you're in my class, or you were in my class last year, you remember us talking about Georgia O'Keeffe, and you probably remember doing some projects that were inspired by her artwork. So she did a lot of paintings on flowers, and she was really well known for doing even big zoom-in close-ups of flowers like this one here. These are just a few examples of some of her artwork. And she was an American artist. She was actually born in Wisconsin, and she studied right here in Chicago at the Art Institute of Chicago. She lived to be almost 100 years old, and she's a great artist to look into a little bit more, and especially as it relates to drawing and painting flowers. So here are some pictures of coneflowers. You'll see that there are lots of different colors of coneflowers, and on this one, notice the shape of the center and the shape of the petals. So now we're going to start to draw our coneflowers, and you've probably noticed in those pictures that the centers sometimes look different. Sometimes they look more what I would call like a gumdrop shape. Sometimes they're very pointy at the top. Sometimes they're a little flatter and maybe more like an oval. So however you want to draw your center, or if you want to mix it up, if you're going to draw more than one coneflower, like I am right now, I'm going to draw 3 coneflowers on my paper. You might want to do a variety of shapes on the center of your coneflower. So I'm going to do one that's kind of like that gumdrop shape. It's just an arched line, kind of like a rainbow shape, and I'm adding a little curved line underneath it to close it. So that's my first center. My next flower, this one's going to be kind of angled this way. My next flower, I'm going to angle it a little bit more this way, and maybe I'll make this one a little bit more pointy, almost like a mountain, and then a little curved line on the bottom. And down here, maybe I'll do a little bit flatter one. So again, it's kind of like a rainbow shape, that arched line. and then a curved line to close it off. So now I have 3 centers. I know where my flowers are gonna be, and keep in mind that the petals of these flowers are gonna overlap each other. So you can decide which flower you want to be more in front and which ones you want to be more behind. And then the one in front, the petals are gonna overlap. So start with the one you want to be in front. And I think I'm gonna have this one right here be my front flower. So the petals, and I'm gonna show you a couple pictures that I drew of coneflowers. You can see the shape of the petals. They're kind of, I would say they kind of droop down from the center of the flower. And they're just curved lines that come back up to the center like that. So on the left side, whoops, I'm going to start over here. On the left side, I'm going to have them kind of droop down to the left and come back up. They have a little bit of a point to them, but it's not a sharp point. Okay, so it's not a sharp, maybe necessarily a sharp point like that, although they could, a couple of them could have sharper points, but it's maybe a little bit more soft like that. Over here on the right side, I'm going to droop them kind of down to this way. Okay, so now I'm going to add one more here. Now I have some petals that are kind of cascading or drooping down from the center of the flower. And I'm going to add a couple petals in between here. So maybe one here, one here. So you notice what I'm doing? I'm not drawing the entire petal. I'm just drawing a little hint, a little piece of the petal that's peeking through. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my next flower. And again, I'm just doing a curved line coming down, and then I come back up to the center of the flower. If you want to give it a little wave, see how that one, maybe I gave a little bit of a wave. You could do that. They don't have to all be going in the same direction. Now, when I get to this part, I'm going to just jump over these petals that I already drew. So once I get there, look, I'm going to jump over, and I'm just going to imagine that those petals are behind this flower. I'm going to add one more over here. And then again, I'm going to add a few little ends, a little piece of a petal peeking through there. So now I'm going to go to my third flower down here. Now this one won't be touching these flowers, so I don't have to worry about overlapping. But again, the petals kind of droop down, or they curve down from the center of the flower. And the more you practice this, the easier it'll get. So again, I'm adding those little end pieces of the petals that are underneath or behind. All right, so now I need some stems for my flower. So I'm just gonna kind of figure out where the center is. And then I'm gonna draw 2 maybe slightly curved lines. And do you see how I am jumping over this flower? Okay, so again, I'm going to find the center. And these stems, you want to be very skinny. You don't want them to be too wide or too fat. And now this one, here's the center. See how skinny I made those stems? They're very skinny. Now, going back to the center, you might notice that the top of the center is not real smooth. It's actually kind of, you might call it spiky or bumpy. It's not just a smooth center. And if you take a look at a picture of a real coneflower, which I'll show you again in a minute. In fact, let's look at that right now. Okay, so we're going to try to show that in the center of our flower. And if you just even want to do a couple bumpy or wavy lines like this, of course, you always want to press lightly or draw lightly with your pencil so that you're able to erase your lines later. We've talked about this a lot in class. If you press too hard, it's going to be hard to erase it later. So we are going to outline these. If you have marker at home, great. If you don't, you can use colored pencil. In fact, maybe I'll use colored pencil on this so that you'll see what that looks like. Now, coneflowers can come in many different colors. They can be pink, they can be red, they can be yellow. You can even make them, you can come up with your own fun, unique colors. But in nature, they're usually pink or red or yellow. I'm going to make these pink. And I'm going to start to outline, kind of outline my petals. And now with this colored pencil, I'm pressing a little bit harder so that the dark, I get more of a dark pink outline. Okay, with colored pencil, just with one colored pencil, you can get lots of different shades. So if I press real hard, I get that very bright, bold pink. If I don't press as hard, it's a little lighter. So see how I'm gradually lightening up the pressure. We would call this a value scale. And if you've been in my class for a while, you know what I mean by value scale. So look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I already got 5 different shades of pink with just one pencil, depending on how much pressure I use. So sometimes I want to use a lot of pressure, and I'm just going to add some dark lines of pink coming from the center, like that. I also might want to use pressure here on these petals that are peeking out from underneath so that they're a little bit darker pink. Why would they be darker pink? Well, they're underneath, and so they're a little bit shadowed by these petals, right? And then for these top petals, I'm not going to apply as much pressure. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue coloring these petals, and I'm going to add in a couple other colors. You might notice on this coneflower that I have pink, and I also have a little bit of a light purple in there. So I'll probably add some light purple to my petals. I also added a little bit of this brown color up at the top. So I'm going to do that too. But I'm going to put it on fast motion, and you can just watch as I color, and then feel free to pause the video so that you can outline and color your flowers. Going to work on the center part of the flower, and there I'm erasing a little bit of that original line I drew, and I'm gonna kind of outline by pressing hard with my pencil that kind of wiggly, up and down, jagged edge at the top. And so the center, I'm going to use basically, I'm going to use 3 or 4 different colors. I'm going to use light brown, and these are Crayola colored pencils. I'm going to use light brown. I'm going to use some golden yellow. I'm going to use a little bit of black at the bottom, and I was going to also use maybe a little bit of a darker brown. This is just regular brown. Okay, so I'm going to start by just coloring, and I want to stay vertical here. Since the center of the flower, those little seeds or whatever they are kind of going up and going vertical, I want to stay vertical instead of coloring side to side. So hopefully that makes sense to you. We always want to go in the direction that things are going, right? So if things are going normally up and down, we want to color up and down. If they're going side to side, then we want to color side to side. So now I'm going to add a little bit of black. Down at the base or at the bottom of the center. Did you see how I went down into the petals a little bit? Into the edges of the petal. So I have dark brown and black at the bottom. And now I'm going to add some of this golden yellow. Maybe I'll go back to adding a little bit more brown on top of the yellow. Okay, so now all I need is to color my stem. And in case you're wondering what colors I used on my petals, again, these are Crayola. I used magenta, and I also used, boy, I can't even read what that says, but it's kind of a lavender. This one might not be Crayola, but kind of a lavender purple I used. All right, so I just need to color my stems. And, you know, I usually like to use at least 2 colors for everything I do, unless it's meant to be just one solid color. Hopefully that makes sense. So like on this stem, instead of just coloring the whole thing one color green, I'm going to use two colors of green. So I have to get another color of green. So maybe a dark and a light green. Do you see how that just creates kind of like a shadow on one side of the stem? You know, just doing that one thing. Just from now on, when you color using 2 different shades, that will make your artwork just come alive so much more than if you would just use one color. So hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, so you can see what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to complete coloring and filling in my other 2 flowers, and I'll do it in fast motion. I also wanted to point out to you that I am adding a little bit of black colored pencil along the edges of some of these petals. just to kind of help separate the petals and define the edges, which means make the edges stand out a little bit more. I especially did it right here where you can see that the petals are overlapping my flowers. But we don't want it to be too outlined. All right, so the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of background. I thought what would be fun on this is to do a little bit of stippling. And if you've been in my class for a while, you probably already know and remember what stippling is. So I'm going to use a marker for this, and stippling is just when you do fast little dots like this, very random and not controlled so much, which is very different than doing like polka dots like this, which is very controlled, very slow, very patterned, right? This is much faster. I'm just very loosely and quickly adding some dots to the background. Now, if you stay in one area for a long time, it'll look a little darker. We can create value, which means dark and light. We can create some darker values and also a little bit of texture and just some fun, a little extra fun to this picture by adding stippling. Doesn't that look fun? Now, if you've been in my class for a while, you may have done coneflowers with me before, but maybe this was your first time drawing coneflowers. So I hope you enjoyed it. Just adding a few more stippling dots here and there. Just kind of fun, right? And then in the end, I'm gonna sign my artwork. If I wasn't gonna leave this in my sketchbook, I'd probably trim this a little bit and then maybe mount it on some nice cardstock paper. But that's our coneflower, and next we're gonna do some Easter lilies. So here are some beautiful pictures of Easter lilies. And of course, Easter is coming up right around the corner. So just take a good look at how these flowers look in real life. Okay, so now we're gonna try drawing some Easter lilies. And again, this is geared for Art 2 students, and at Gift students in intermediate art and advanced art. But that being said, even if you're older and more experienced as an artist, you can certainly take these drawings to whatever level you're at. I didn't even quite finish this one. As you can see, I didn't finish shading the background, but here's one of my sketches of some Easter lilies. But I did want to show you just the very basic shape. Now this might look funny to you at first, but the basic shape of these Easter lilies is triangles if we're seeing them from the side, from a side angle. And if we're looking at the flower that's opened facing us, straight at us, it's actually like a star. So if I used that as my basic, here I'm just adding some stems. I know that might sound funny or look funny to you at first, but that's actually the basic shape that I would start with. So maybe I'll just do 2 flowers. So again, just kind of a triangle shape and a stem. And then I'm gonna do one that's like a big star. And this flower is opened up and facing us. Okay, so let's go back to this triangle shape. I don't want it so pointy here. I'm gonna add kind of a curvy bottom. See how I added a curvy bottom? And now I'm gonna curve out a little bit at the top. And I'm gonna erase the top of my triangle. Now, if you press too hard with your pencil, you're not gonna be able to erase that. So remember not to press hard with your pencil. And I'm just gonna add some petals now that are curving out. So I'm gonna turn this into a petal. So it's gonna curve out and back in like that. This is gonna turn into a petal. Okay, and I'm gonna add a few more petals here. So this one, I'm just gonna draw 2 curved lines, and you can either make it end like this, or you could just kind of show, maybe it's bending over on the other side, so you're not really seeing the end of it. So maybe it's something like that. See how it's curling over? So I did 2 curved lines, closed it, and then I kept this line going and I added a little end that makes it look like it's curving over and we're seeing the tip on the other side. That's kind of fun. And so I think I need one more petal now. And this petal I'm gonna add, it's gonna be kind of curving towards me. So I'm gonna maybe start in the center, curve line, kind of like that. And I'm gonna erase this line. Maybe I came in too far. There we go. Something like that. All right. So now I just need to add the center part of my lily. So these center parts are just, there's some lines that are coming out of the center, and then they have these kind of long oval shapes at the end. So I'm gonna draw some curved lines, maybe some going to the right, some going to the left, and then I'm gonna draw those long oval shapes. Maybe I'll add one right there. Okay, so there's one lily. Now I'm gonna go to this star-shaped lily. And so I have my star, and it looks like a star because we're looking at the lily straight ahead. It's facing us and it's opened. And so what we're gonna do first is we're gonna round these corners out. So we're gonna take away this sharp corner and we're gonna add a curved line. See how I did that? And then instead of such a pointy end like that, I'm gonna turn it into more of a rounded petal shape. In fact, I don't want it to be too skinny there, so I'm gonna push that corner out a little bit more. And you know what? You can go right off the edge of the page too, if you need to. See how this petal is just kind of going right off the edge of the page. You can actually add in some wavy lines too, like this. I might turn it into a wavy line instead of a straight line here. And maybe another wavy line. I don't want it to be too skinny there. All right, so now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna erase that original star shape. The star shape, you know, you might be thinking, well, why would I draw it if I'm just gonna erase it? Well, it kind of gives you a framework. It gives you a base or something to start with, the basic shape to start with, and then you can make changes along the way. I hope that makes sense. I think this petal looks too skinny, so I'm gonna make that a little fatter. There we go. And now find the center. Here's the center. I'm going to add maybe a couple lines like this. It kind of reminds me of, if you were in class with me a couple weeks ago, we talked about different types of trees. And one of the trees we talked about was the palm tree. You guys might remember drawing the palm tree. And remember, I said we started with this, and it reminded me of fireworks. Remember how we did that? Well, this is very similar, really almost identical to what we're doing right now with the lily flower. It's these kind of, in fact, you could have started that way too. That would have been another way to draw this. Anyway, we're going to add in those curved lines and then those skinny tall, I mean, they're tiny, but they're skinny little ovals like that coming out of our petals. Okay, and for leaves, the leaves are just kind of like this. Bigger shaped leaves. You could use a wavy line. See how I'm using a wavy line? Remember, we want our stems to be pretty skinny. Maybe I'll put one more leaf down here. Okay. So I'm going to close that off a little bit. As far as coloring the lilies are white, but we do want to add a little bit of shadow in our petals. So you could either just use your pencil, or you could use a gray colored pencil if you wanted to. But if you use a regular drawing pencil or a graphite pencil, you will be able to blend that a little bit. We've talked about blending before, either using a blending tool if you have one at home, or if you don't, you can just use your finger to blend, and that will help add a little bit of shadow and shading to your finger. Now, technically, you're not supposed to blend with your finger because of the oils on your skin, but since we're at home and we don't have maybe blending tools with us, we can just use our finger. So what I mean is shading it like that, and then I have a little bit of pencil on my finger, and I'm able to add a little bit here and there. All right, so you might also want to add, notice how I have a little bit of yellow in here. So if you have some colored pencils and you want to just add a little bit of yellow, not much, just a tiny little bit, you can. Of course, these ovals are going to be colored yellow, and I am using a golden yellow, and I'm pressing kind of hard. And then you're going to want to add some green. Now, I would recommend maybe the yellow green to start with, to do these lines. You could even add a little bit of green here, but not a lot. And then of course you want to color your stems and your leaves. And remember what I said in the coneflower, it's always a good idea to add more than one color. So on this leaf, I'll show you what I mean. Right now I'm just coloring this leaf one color green, the yellow green. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Looks pretty good. But watch what would happen if I add, and I'm just sharpening my pencil here, if I add some dark green, Makes a big difference, doesn't it? I can add some dark green to my stem. Now you might even want to add a third color green. If you do, feel free. Now, you'll notice that I'm getting some pencil on my hand and I'm kind of getting it on I'm smearing it a little bit. So just be aware of that. For the background, now if you want to outline these flowers, you certainly can. You know, if you have markers at home and you want to outline with gray, or perhaps you want to do a color in the background. Now in this one, I just shaded it, and I actually used some darker B pencils. I used like a 6B to shade in the back, but maybe you want to use colored pencil or marker. Maybe you want your background to be blue, for example. Well, if your background's going to be blue, you could actually outline these flowers, and not just the flowers, but the stem too. Now this might look funny at first, but you'll see what I'm getting at in a minute. If you want to outline with whatever color your background's going to be, and then color with colored pencil, if you want a colored background, that's a good idea too. Now, I don't typically, you'll notice that I'm coloring with colored pencil. I'm outlining with Sharpie. I don't usually color in large areas with Sharpie. If it's a very small area, that's fine. But if it's a big space like this, I would use colored pencil. So you see what I mean? I'm outlining. Now, if you want to do your background purple, lavender, maybe for Easter, like a pretty pastel color. Again, you can outline with the marker and then color with colored pencil. So you have some options, but hopefully you enjoyed drawing the Easter lilies, and I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and I'll show you my finished drawing when I'm done. Okay, so here's my finished picture of Easter lilies. It did take me quite a long time to color the background blue. So if you don't want to color your background, you certainly don't have to. If you do, don't press hard with your pencil, because your hand's going to get tired and you're not going to be able to finish it, or it's going to take you a long time to finish it. So I also decided to add a little bit of stippling with my marker on top of my blue colored pencil, just for fun, just because sometimes I get a little crazy and I love stippling. So I added that. You'll notice in my leaves, I did actually end up adding a little bit of the golden yellow to my leaves. So in my leaves, I used two different colors of green. I used the yellow green and a regular green, a darker green, and then I added the golden yellow right on top. And you see how nice that looks, having a little yellow in the leaves and the stems. For the shading, I wanted to show you what a blending tool looks like. This is a blending tool. If you've been in my class, you've probably used these already before. They come in different sizes. So some are very small and skinny, some are very big and fat. And basically it's just rolled up paper, but it's a special kind of paper. And I may end up doing a video on making your own homemade blending tools, since the stores are closed and we may not be able to get out and buy blending tools, but we'll see. Anyway, I hope you had fun drawing the Easter lily. So thanks for joining me in drawing the coneflowers and the Easter lilies. And remember, if you need to watch this video a couple times over and pause it, feel free. It did take me quite a long time to finish both of these projects. Also, I just wanted to let you know, students in Advanced Art, I know we were working on our polar bear projects. If you have those in your sketchbooks and you're not done with them yet, I encourage you to finish those at home if you're able to. The watercolor painting polar bear project will be hard to do from home unless you have all those supplies. So hopefully we can get back to that when we return to gift. For students in Art 2, we finished drawing the human face, and I know some of you still did not get a chance to finish your 1-point perspective watercolor painting with the bridge and the city skyline. If you didn't get a chance to finish that, again, hopefully we'll have a chance to come back together at Heritage and finish those projects. All right, you guys have a great day, and I'll see you soon.